better? Sorry, is
Yes,
that
much better.
better?
Yes, I can hear you now. Hello, how are
Okay,
you?
good. Hi, how are you?
I'm excellent. Just going through our Monday news coverage, covering a little bit of international stuff, some domestic electoral stuff, good conversation we just had with somebody who also covers politics here. So it's a day for conversations. How about you?
All right. Well, you know what? So far, so good.
I
This is
love your
my
background.
first real to do today. So let's see how it goes.
Thank you so much for coming on today. I found your first campaign ad that you did talking about, a lot of your lived experiences. Why don't you, for anybody who is not familiar with you, just kind of give us an introduction to yourself and, where you're running, and we'll kind of go from there.
Okay, sure. So I'm Jen Perelman, and I live in South Florida. I'm actually a second generation native Floridian. So I grew up down here. I was born in North Miami Beach. And I moved away, went to school, have a law degree, got married, and in 2003 moved back. Took off about 10 years from practicing to be home with my boys. And then in about 2015, just started, I was always interested in active in politics. I volunteered for, I want to say, every presidential campaign since before I was, even 18. Like, I was always interested in politics. I was followed it. But then in about 2015, when I wasn't working and I had time, I started getting more involved locally in politics here. And I was volunteering for the campaign for somebody who actually challenged Debbie in 2016 in the same race. And so I just started becoming very familiar with the district, with the politics here, and it just sort of fell into place. My business partner and I met on that last campaign for the guy who was running before, and we just stayed in touch. And then he came up with the brilliant idea that I should challenge Debbie. And I had been asked many times in my life, like, you should run for office, you should run for office. But he was the first person that ever offered to help. So it wasn't just so much, you should run for office. It was, we could do this. Let's come up with a plan. And so we did. And we challenged Debbie in 2020. And we really, we had common sense, we had reason, we both had our varied life experiences, but we really didn't know what we were doing as far as running a campaign. And we still got close to 30% in a pandemic.
That's very impressive.
We lost 2 months of canvas time because of the pandemic. And people don't realize, but for a grassroots campaign to not be able to be knocking doors is huge. Like, that's the whole campaign is your ground game, because you're not going to be able to spend it in mailers and ads, which is what she can afford to do. So she could be flooding your TV while you're stuck home in a pandemic, and we can't do that. So the fact that we did as well as we did was pretty impressive. And it really, I'd like to think, oh, I'm this great candidate. And I know that there's definitely an appeal for different reasons for somebody like me. But at the end of the day, people are just so unhappy with their representation. There are so many people that just do not like this woman.
Yeah.
And for a lot of reasons are stuck with her. We get 14% participation in a primary. Okay, 14%. So, and then of that, less than half of them are participating in the Democratic primary. And then how many of them vote for her? Not a lot. So the majority of people in this district are not being represented.
Could you tell me a little bit about your district? Like, what is your district? What's obviously like the district number, but what are the vibes like? What is the sentiment that people in your district feel right now in this moment?
So South Florida is a very unusual animal. We're in Florida. Florida is definitely a very libertarian. They say we're a red state. We're really more purple. Our state legislature has been hijacked by a bunch of right-wing evangelicals, but our state and the people are fairly populist libertarian.
I've heard Florida described as the more south you go, the more north you get.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm in Louisiana. I should preface that. So we're neighbors, so I know what the Gulf South vibes are.
Yeah, so when you get down to South Florida, it really does feel like maybe a piece of Long Island drifted down the coast and attached itself to the bottom. It's not typical. And Broward County, where I am, is the bluest county in the state of Florida. So my district takes up basically the southern portion of Broward County. So we're fairly normal rectangle now. It's less gerrymandered than it was in the past, which is interesting, but it also works in our favor. We are now completely only in Broward County. Our district used to go down into some of Miami-Dade. So our district is basically the southern half of Broward. If you were to look at Broward County, it's like a rectangle. And so we go from basically the Everglades to the beach, across from, let's say, if you're familiar at all with Plantation as the top town and Miramar is the bottom town, like Hollywood, Davie, Cooper City, Hallandale, Pembroke Pines, Weston. It's this suburban, it's a suburban hellscape here.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. So that's the district, and the demographics have changed. So we do, yes, we're still a very blue district, meaning whoever wins the primary will win the general, which is why she gets to sit there that way. So we're still blue, safe blue, but the demographic has changed significantly. We are increasingly, this won't surprise nobody, very Latino. I want to say we're at like 46% now of our district is Latino. And it was always there was always a heavy demographic. But because we cut out the portions of Dade that we did cut out, it's even more of a Latino influence. And then we gained a portion of the district that is very working class, which is great for a grassroots campaign. It's great for me.
Yeah.
And very canvassable, a very canvassable area. And it's heavy also Latino and a large Haitian population. We have a very large Haitian population as well.
From what I understand, a lot of these communities not just affected by gerrymandering, not just affected by gentrification, but also specifically Little Haiti, also deeply affected by climate change, with this being Florida. Is that correct?
Yes, and that's in Miami-Dade County, and so it's not in my district, but that I will explain the problem, which is really, well, again, it's not surprising at all when you think about how things work. So where Little Haiti is built down in Miami-Dade County is actually very elevated. And I say elevated from we are at sea level perspective. Yeah. Okay, like people like, you're in Louisiana. So like when we say elevated, I don't think it's what a lot of people think of as elevated, but Little Haiti is an area that floods less, that is having less issues with sea level rise. And as a result, it is now desired real estate. And so gentrification is running amok. So you're seeing a lot of people that live there and have lived there forever, now not being able to afford to stay there anymore. Because now it's desirable to the wealthy people. So that is happening in Miami-Dade County.
Well, I am looking at your campaign page. I'm just showing it to the audience right now so that they can see as well. Everything I see right here on your issues page: establish electoral, economic, and environmental justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense for foreign policy, promote general welfare, a 21st century economic bill of rights, secure blessings of liberty. So all of your policies are very much, I would say, in line. This is, after all, if we're not given any kind of introduction to me or my community, this is a very leftist community. A lot of 2016, 2020 Bernie campaign volunteers are in this audience, myself included. As far as the current state of politics, when you win, not if, when you win, what is your, what are you bringing into Congress that we are really missing right now?
I hate when I have to answer this because it almost sounds like dissing people that are there that I know.
No, diss away, spill.
No, because the truth is that everybody is their own unique situation, and I really don't know. I can only speak from me and what my intent is and what I look at it, how I see it. I see this as a term of service, not a career. This was never about me getting this job. This was never about that being like a career move for me. I need neither the job nor the money. So for me, it's really a matter of bringing back this concept of transforming politics into service. And I realize, and I am not delusional, I also am a Bernie person. I come from the line of thought where the Democrats are looking pretty ruined at this point, and I'm not sure if there's any way to bring that back to a labor base versus a corporate base. And that's ultimately what I'm trying to do. Now, how effective I can be at doing that, I don't know. I look at it as you would get 2 years of a congressional platform to be as loud and as powerful a voice as you can be. right? Now, what that really ultimately leads to in terms of policy, I don't know. Is what's missing, they need someone there who truly doesn't care about keeping the job? I don't know. It's I've been watching it the same as everyone else. I saw AOC get in 18. I was excited about that. I'm like, okay, a non-corporate person can take out a corporate incumbent, and that's possible, and okay. And so, and it was inspired. And we've all been watching the same series of events. We've all seen what has happened. And there's a whole variety of reasons, some very legitimate, some we probably don't agree with. There's a whole bunch of reasons why that didn't manifest the way we wanted that to manifest. And I wish I could say that, oh, this is the answer. I don't know, but I do know that I am not someone who cares enough about keeping that job to not be doing that job. And I would also suggest that what is missing a lot from how we cover congressional politics, and it's on us as people, like, we're only interested in the juicy stuff that's going on in DC and the fighting and the politics and the legislative stuff. But half of this job is serving your district. Half of this job is being present in this district and representing these people in many different capacities. So the legislative and DC component, while it is important, might not necessarily be the first place that we start to see the change that we want to see. And for me, it's just really very local. I look at so many missed opportunities locally that if I were the representative, that would have gotten more attention. That would be a bigger deal. Even though it might be decided in Tallahassee, I'd be making a big fuss about it. If I had a federal seat and a platform, and are you kidding? I can't, I'd be out like I am marching in the fight for 15, which we got, by the way. We got the fight for 15. But, why are our elected people not on picket lines? Why are they not out there? Why is my elected person not fighting against Florida being a right to work state every single day of her life? I don't know. These are the things I cannot say. I can just say, as an advocate, I see it as more than just trying to get policy through at the national level. And I think it's important, but yeah, your guess is as good as mine how effective one more voice can be. I don't know. At some point, it'll be the straw, right? Like, at some point, there will be more of us than them if we keep chipping away.
Well, I like that you brought up that a lot of the national politics has been a lot of like infighting. And while I'm a little messy, I like a little drama, but much of it is to the detriment of the broader majority of American people. And there are multiple pieces of legislation that have just been sitting. Are there any, like Green New Deal, Voting Rights Act? Are there anything that you have been watching and just waiting in the wings? Like, why has this been sitting there that you really want to see pushed more forward?
What you do is you sit down and you look at a list of all the pending legislation that is in need of more signatures, and you go through and you add your name to as many of those that are as helpful as possible. And yeah, it's components of the Green New Deal. Ilhan Omar has an amazing housing bill that she has been pushing, and housing is a huge thing for me, even though a lot of it is handled state level. That is something that obviously our representatives are not using their strength enough to fight back for people to have like the right to housing. So that's a huge one. Single payer healthcare. We know it exists. The bill is there. We know how many people have signed it, and we know, most importantly, who hasn't signed it. So there's all of that. But the key thing that I'm really pushing, and I'm hoping that this sort of takes like, it'll be like when Bernie started talking Medicare for all, right? Like, we weren't all talking about that as a whole, and then Bernie started really pushing it. And now it's almost, for me on the left, it's a given. It's a given. I won't even debate single payer healthcare with people anymore, because it's like arguing with flat earthers at this point. Like, I'm not going to do it. But so for me, I'm really pushing federal job guarantee. I love the idea of a federal jobs guarantee. It's part of the 21st century economic bill of rights that I think we are all entitled to. That includes lots of good things. But the idea of a federal job guarantee is so much smarter than constantly battling the minimum wage and living wage and all of that. If you have a federal job guarantee that sets the living wage, that's it. That sets the living wage. Every private industry, every private business has to compete with that for employees.
Same with unions.
Exactly. And I'm a huge supporter of unionization. I mean, that's a given. But the idea of federal job guarantee, that you take all the unemployment offices and you turn them to employment offices, it's not complicated. FDR has done this. It's not something that's just so far out, but yet we think of it as. And my goal is to definitely, if there's one concept that I can kind of nudge, plant the seed, I really love the idea of federal job guarantee. So that's something. So my top three are healthcare, housing, and jobs. I think that right now, those are the most critical, and not just jobs, living wage jobs, right? Like it isn't just giving people, there's plenty of jobs. If you want to work 3 jobs and bust your ass, there's plenty of jobs, living wage jobs. Okay. So healthcare is number one, and will always be number one until we have single payer healthcare, because that to me changes the most people's lives in the shortest amount of time. Hands down. Nothing would fix more people's lives almost overnight than single payer healthcare. And the amount of financial burden and stress that people are under as a result of not having single payer healthcare. So it's both health and economical. But so that's huge. And housing. And obviously we could then talk about environment and education and all of those things. But I feel like healthcare, housing, and jobs.
It is 3 of the biggest ways that the American system has failed its people.
Yes. And I feel like if those 3 things, think about it, if everyone had healthcare, housing, and a living wage job, seriously, what real problems would we not be able to really handle? Like, what would there be? I think that when you give people that baseline existence of dignity, that we're able to do so many more things collectively, which is, I think, obviously the reason why we don't have those things. Like that's part of the plan, is to keep us all desperate and scrambling and trying to keep our heads above water so that nobody can really proactively do anything. So I think those are, to me, healthcare, housing, jobs are the survival, is the survival component. And I feel like when people's heads are above water, we can then have discussions about so many other things.
Well, I like that you brought up healthcare, especially. One of the things I hear the most, and especially as we've been covering geopolitics, has been we can't have healthcare because we are, funding proxy wars in either Ukraine or in Israel. And that kind of brings us to one of the things that I really wanted to talk to you about today. Your campaign announcement ad was starting with a picture of you on, I believe it was Birthright, was it not?
It wasn't Birthright. It's actually, because I did something called Alexander Muss High School in Israel. It's through the JNF, and it's a high school program.
Okay.
And so Birthright is offered to people after high school who have not yet been to Israel. So for all of us that did that high school program, we wouldn't have qualified for Birthright anyway. So this was pre when most people do Birthright. It was in high school. I was in a program in Israel.
I see. So it is a bold move, I would say, to, in your announcement for your candidacy, to come out, especially at this time, in favor of Palestinian justice. We have been covering this for 8 months, and beyond October 7th, this has always been a broadcast where we have talked very candidly about the situation of Palestine. Could you kind of give us where your perspective on this is informed from, and where you, as a representative, as an elected official, would stand on the issue of Palestine? Because we have had a lot of representatives be very soft on the Israel lobby, very soft on the actions of Israel, and quite candidly, virulently xenophobic, Islamophobic, all the phobics against the Palestinian people and those within America, both Jewish, Arab, Muslim, Palestinian, who have been fighting for Palestinian emancipation. So kind of walk us through where you're at on that.
Yeah, so this has been a very big issue for me my entire life. I was, like I said, I was raised Jewish in South Florida. By definition, we were Zionists. There was no, it was just so interconnected. We did so many things were about Israel and for Israel. I have cousins in Israel. Like, the goal was to make Aliyah, which is for an American to, go and serve in the military and make Israeli citizenship. And I had my bat mitzvah in Israel. Like, I was raised with a general, we needed Israel in order for Jews to be safe. Like, that's what we needed. It was our place. but we were so lied to. We were so brainwashed and lied to and propagandized, and we were never told the truth. My great grandmother and my grandmother, they died never knowing the truth. They were taught that there was nothing there, that there were no people there, that that was an empty space, that was this barren desert until the Jews came and made it bloom. And, you know, of course, now hearing that, it sounds absurd.
Yeah, a land for a people, or a land without people for a people without a land.
Without a land. And they still justify that. They'll acknowledge there were people, but not a people.
Right.
Okay. And as a frame of reference, my representative to this day, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, has never said the word Palestinian. It will not come out of her mouth, because as Jews growing up here in this country, Western Ashkenazi Jews, we are taught that Palestine isn't a real place, that that's not real. We are taught that those are just Arabs, and that it was never a place until we moved there, and then they all wanted it. That's basically what we're taught. So if she were to say the word Palestinian, it would be acknowledging an entire cultural existence that up till now she's denied. And also they do a really good job at othering, to the point where when you see these Israeli, they're Nazis to me. When I look at the people there, like the people that are blocking the aid and the people that are cheering for this and have their kids in front of this, I look at that, and as a Jewish person whose family comes from very post-Holocaust trauma, I look at that and I think the Nazis won, and they have actually created a situation where the Jews are now perpetrating what their intent was, their white supremacist ideology. They have turned the Jews into basically fascist foot soldiers for white supremacy. And it's extremely frustrating. I know there's a lot of people that are still stuck in it. It took me about 15 plus years to slowly peel away. And I would be like, I don't want to sound in any way conceited about it, but the truth is I am probably brighter than the average bear. I've always been very curious and research oriented and looking into things and really digging. And so the fact that it took me that long, right, to like really unravel, it doesn't lend itself to me thinking that that's possible for everybody, unfortunately. I wish I could say that everybody will just see this. I meet people. I met a woman the other night. I met a woman Saturday night that when she found out my position on this, she like ripped up my card and said that I was dangerous for Jews and all of this stuff. And this is a woman who's younger than me. So just to see how ingrained that brainwash propaganda is and how fear-mongering it is. My position on it is I no longer, well, first of all, I love when people ask me, does Israel have a right to exist? No, it doesn't. I actually don't believe any country has a right to exist. I don't think countries have rights. People have rights. Countries have obligations to protect.
Have you been watching my broadcast? Because I say this every day. I say this every day.
That's so funny. No, and so when people say, does Israel have a right to exist? I'm like, no, actually it doesn't. But I don't think any country has a right to exist. But I will also say then very specifically that I am very unequivocal. I will never support the idea of an ethno-state ever again. The only way to have an ethno-state is to commit an ethno-cleanse. And once you realize that, you don't unsee that. So at this point in time, I think one, no countries have rights to exist. And two, I personally will never support the existence of an ethno-state. So that does include the state of Israel. And it's funny because if you look on my policy on my website, where it's defense, or we talk about foreign policy, I wrote it like such a dork, like it was the preamble. I did that. I wrote it like that because I am a dork. This is my little friend here. So that's how it's written, as if it were the preamble, like this is what we're entitled to. I don't mention Israel. I specifically say we cannot support financially or otherwise any country that is in violation of international law or human rights.
I mean, that's already on the books. We have the Leahy Act. We just ignore it.
Exactly. I don't need to point anything out. Like, I could talk to you specifically about Israel, but at the end of the day, all I need to say is we don't support or send arms or any sort of systems to countries in violation of international law or in violation of human rights. It's really not complicated. And Israel just happens to be the worst one right now.
Well, that is, I can tell you the audience definitely agrees with you. I 100% agree. I think, especially in the context of post-October 7th, that beyond the apartheid, beyond the ethnic cleansing campaign that's been taking place for over 100 years, for both the diaspora and for Jewish Israelis, I think one of the greatest crimes of the coalition government of the Knesset is that they have robbed the diaspora and Israelis of the ability to grieve what happened on October 7th. The Palestinians can't grieve any day because they're in mass detention camps, they're in Gaza, they're in the West Bank getting their homes destroyed.
Yeah, they don't have PTSD. They have TSD.
Yeah.
They just have TSD. They just live it every day. So they've never had a chance to grieve.
Yeah. But even the Jewish diaspora can't grieve this moment where something horrible did happen. But at the same time, it is a direct consequence of making Jewish people unsafe, because that's what, maintaining that apartheid does. You have to create an unsafe environment to justify the further escalations. I 100% agree with you. I am, to be honest, shocked. Not unpleasantly, I will say that much. Not unpleasantly. I am shocked that you would have such a clear-eyed position on this, because it is oftentimes there are people who will, by nature of trying to get elected in America, run the Israel has a right to defend itself, Israel has a right to exist, while both of those things are in direct contravention of international law. That brings me to something that many people within my political cohort on the left will wonder about your candidacy, because now we have someone like Fetterman to look at that espoused all of these progressive values, ran the typical trying to get elected line of Israel has a right to defend itself, but now is just a virulent Zionist to the point where he's going to ruin Pennsylvania's electoral map for decades. Could you offer any kind of comfort to people who may be suspicious of anyone running in this context that is critical of Israel?
Yeah, for sure. So I would suggest that people go and look at, I have a podcast that I've been doing since I ran in 20. We transitioned that platform into a podcast called Generational Change with a J. Currently, my business partner is doing it solo for the duration of the campaign. But so I have 3.5+ years of content where you can see who I am and what I'm about, and I wasn't campaigning. And I also would suggest that you look we started a series in October of 22 called Deconstructing Zionism on my podcast. And I started it with a huge, we did 3 panels back to back, a few hours. And that was where I've had this position for a long time. I have. And I've always said it if asked, right? I didn't put it out there because it definitely is a risk for someone who is considering being involved politically. And I knew this somewhat strategically after 20, that my position on this would be an issue.
Right.
I knew it would be an issue. There's a lot of Jewish people down here. Fortunately, a lot of them are registered Republicans, so they don't vote in my primary. So strategically, it's not an issue. I knew this would be an issue. And a couple years ago, I messaged my business partner a link to, it was a little boy. I cannot remember his name. And at this point, there have been so many little children that Hind Rajab's voice will stay in my head for the rest of my life. But a couple of years ago, something happened, some little boy, it was in the West Bank. I don't even remember. It was some other horrible thing. And I texted the picture to my business partner. And this was about 2 years ago. And I said, this is now the hill I'm going to die on. And I just decided that at that point that I need to just not just have this position, but just be very proactive and accept whatever is going to happen. Like I said, I never lied about it. Mm-hmm. If anyone ever asked me, I would honestly say what I'm saying to you now. Mm-hmm. But then I just really about 2 years ago started very proactively putting it out there, what my thoughts are on this. So, other than I've been talking about this for a long time. This is not new to me. I realized a few years ago that I was used as a tool of ethnic cleansing. I realized that I was used as a human shield by the state of Israel and a tool of ethnic cleansing. So I do have empathy for people whose loved ones were killed that were living close to the Gaza, Gaza's border. And I do recognize that that's a very dangerous position to be in when you're being used as a tool of ethnic cleansing and a human shield by an apartheid state.
Hmm.
And it's a very rude awakening for people to have, because they have to take some amount of accountability for participating in the idea and the existence of an ethno-state in the first place. And nobody wants to take personal accountability for that. It's very unsettling.
It's soothing
I had a lot
to
of
keep up
crying
those narratives.
I had a lot of crying.
Yeah, it's soothing to think that, these narratives that you're constantly being reinforced. I grew up with family in the Klan, and those narratives were deeply ingrained, and that deconstructing, it is painful to go through. And I will always ride for anybody who has been able to deconstruct those lifelong narratives. Before we wrap, though, again, this clarity that you have, I have a lot of respect for, and I deeply appreciate you sharing that experience with us. Because like I said, these things, going through them and deconstructing them, they hurt, and bringing them forward, especially in the context of you running for office. So to kind of go back for a moment to, casting aside any kind of criticisms people might have, because especially right now for progressive causes, people are very wary. Where are you on corporate lobbying? Where are you on institutions like AIPAC and stuff like that? Your donations, we have the donation link for your campaign pinned up at the top of chat right now. So anybody who wants to donate, where are you? Is your campaign taking corporate PAC money? Just to clear the air about that.
No, it's funny. People ask me that. It's so funny, only because I have been a thorn in the side of that for 5 years. So the thought of any of those people even offering me money is hilarious.
Yeah.
I don't mean to make light of it, but the whole point of why I'm doing this is to get rid of corporate money. So it's just, no, I wouldn't take corporate money. But it's just funny because I don't think you'd find a corporation wanting to give me money. And it's an AIPAC.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I can tell you, I did take the pledge to not take AIPAC money. It was all I could do to keep a straight face. I've been talking shit about AIPAC and people like Jonathan Greenblatt at the ADL for so many years. These people would never offer me a dime. That's why it's just so funny. And actually, if they did want to give me money, that would almost be poetic justice, because would be okay, I'm still going to say what I'm going to say. Mm-hmm. But that's why it's silly to me. I'm sorry. I don't mean to make light of corporate
No, that's great.
Money,
we love to hear it.
No, I would never. They're not my friends.
No,
they don't want to help me.
We definitely love to hear it. That's great. This has been a fantastic interview. Thank you so much for your time. This is a space that we operate in that's very amenable to, everything that's on your campaign. I will do my best to, connect your campaign with other people within the space so you can get your message out. For the viewers, the website for the campaign is pinned at the top of chat. You can go donate there. Do you have any final messages for anybody in chat, anybody who's in Florida who may want to be, getting involved in the campaign with you?
Yeah, look, this, and I hate to say it takes a village.
No, it does.
Because we know who said that. Mm-hmm. But this is definitely a massive effort to unseat a corporate monolith, because that's what this is. This isn't just about Debbie Wasserman Schultz or about me getting that job. It's really the signal that it would send, especially to an organization like AIPAC, to put an anti-Zionist Jew in there instead of the shill they have sitting there right now. That would be a pretty huge symbolic win. Now, that would affect everybody, I believe, countrywide in the message that sends. And they're already feeling a little defeatist because they lost in their plight to get rid of Summer Lee.
Right.
So, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully Jamal will hang on as well and they'll get shut down this time. But AIPAC and organizations' interests like them, that's all of our problem. That's all of our problem. So when we all stand up to that together is the only way we win. And when you look at it from the perspective of, oh, well, that's just that congressional seat there. Yes, it is just this congressional seat here. And yes, it would benefit the people here more so than you if you don't live here. That is true. But you're getting a corporate tool out of Congress in lieu of one more person that is not going to be on the payroll for the military industrial complex or AIPAC or whoever, right? So it matters to everyone. But yes, if you're local and you can come out and help us canvass, the more volunteers, the faster, the better, the more doors we can hit. We need all the help we can get. That's just a fact, because we don't take corporate money. And every day I'm dialing for dollars. Every day is a constant, like, can we make enough money to just like keep going? And it's hard. And we're set up to fail as grassroots. And we should all want to fight against that. And, it's hard. I know people are very, very weary. I know they are. And they're definitely not trusting of the Democratic Party. Neither am I. Neither am I. But the end of the day is that I became a Democrat when I was 18 years old, because my parents were Democrats and my grandparents were Democrats, and I came from working people, so that's just what they were. So that's why I want to bring back the 21st Century Economic Bill of Rights. That's what I'm trying to do, and bring back a Labor Party. So I have a better chance of doing that within this party than in the other party, right? Like, that's the odds are better slightly, but more importantly, down here, it's the only way to participate in politics.
Absolutely.
This is a closed primary in a blue district. This is the only way. People want me to be like, well, I should run as an independent, and I should not if you want to win.
Yeah. Not with first past the post.
Right? It's like people are sending me money. The amount of privilege it would take for me to have that holier than thou attitude, like, I'm going to run as an independent because I can't run with. Okay, so all these people that are sending me small dollar donations, really hoping for change, I'm going to do the least effective strategy because of my principles. Yeah. That is privilege. That is privilege. I don't have the privilege of doing that. I am being supported by I call them shareholders. The shareholders are plentiful. And for me to do something like that is really a spoiled brat thing to do. You have to do it the most efficient way to win. That's right.
Well, everybody, Jen Perelman for Congress. Donation link is in the chat. Thank you so much for this interview. And if you want to, if you feel appropriate, can we get a free Palestine for all of our Palestinian chatters that we have here?
Oh, absolutely. Free Palestine. I'll even say from the river to the sea.
Oh my God.
From the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free.
Let's go.
And it's the only way we'll ever have peace is to have actual justice.
Hell yeah.
And that's the thing that people don't realize, that think this started October 7th. They think that there was peace before that just because they saw peace, because they're the ones standing with the boot on someone's neck. So it seems peaceful at the top up there. But yeah, no, absolutely. Free Palestine.
Thank you so much for this interview. I will be in touch with your campaign. You have a great day. Thank you so much. Chat, that was Jen Perelman again.